Welcome, everybody. Today we are talking about creating a remix. A remix is taking an original song and making a different version out of it. You can do this by combining existing materials to produce something new. To understand what this means, we are going to listen to a few examples first. The first thing you're going to listen to is an original version. And then the second example is going to be the remix of this original version. Most of the tracks that we've listened to have like an electronic dance feel in the background. Not all remixes use this, but this is what we are going to focus on today. Alright, step one. The first thing you're going to do is choose a song. You're going to choose any song that you want to remix. Make sure the song is something that you enjoy listening to. Step 2. Now that you've chosen a song, we want to use the a cappella of this track. What an a cappella means, it's voice only. Now, there are a few different ways that we can do this. We can go to a website such as this. Or you could go onto YouTube. Sometimes they provide you an a cappella track. They call this a vocal track. Or you could also go to an AI, which online, this one, vocalremover.org, it splits up the music from the vocal and you could download just the vocal track. Let's make sure you use a track that the artist approves that you can use. Otherwise, we have to look at the copyrights. Okay, now that we have the a cappella track, the next stage is to think about the tempo, the key, and the chord structure. Looking at tempo, this is the speed. Go to this website here, and this will determine what the speed or what the tempo of your song is. Next, we're going to look at what the key is. The key of a song is basically to let you know if it's a major, kind of happy, or minor, kind of sad scale. And there's little hints that we could find to figure out what the key is. Or you can go to this website here to determine the key. And then the chords that they use. So when the singer is singing a certain note, it's going to match the certain note of your instrument. So let's go to this website, and it's going to help us figure out our chords. So far, you should have all the information you need to start adding tracks. You should have your a cappella. You should know the tempo that you want to use, which you can now change to what you want. You should have the key that you want, which you could also change. And you should have the chord progression, which you could also change. Now remember, you are creating something new. You can take your song and cut and paste it in any shape or form that you would like. Speaking of form, you want to think about verse, chorus, and bridge. Now that you thought about all of the information that you want for your song and you know exactly how you want to remix it, let's actually remix it. The first thing you want to do is set up your DAW. Okay, now that the track is inside your DAW, we are going to look at the fundamentals of electronic dance music for the purpose of this remix here today. The first thing we want to do is add some kick drum. The kick drum is going to provide you that 4 on the floor, that thump, 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 thump. There are a few different ways that you could do this. You could look inside your loops for a kick, or you could use the virtual instruments to put the kick in yourself. Okay, now that we have that driving kick, there's going to be some extra things we could do in the mixing stage, but we are still tracking, so we just want to put all our sounds in the mix. The next thing we're going to do is add claps or snares, which is very common in electronic dance music. It's usually on beats 2 and 4, but again, I'm just going to give you some fundamental ideas, but you could play around with the sounds that you want to fit your song. So far we would have kick, clap, which is doom, tsh, doom, tsh. And that is if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. The next thing that we're going to have is the hi-hats. The hi-hats can also be brought in the same way as the kick and as the clap, through your loops, through samples, or through the virtual instruments. And this is going to do. Next up, let's look for a nice bass line that fits the key of our song. Often, your DAW might actually readjust the key to your song. If it doesn't, pay attention to the sound and to the notes. Do they match or do they not match your melody? In this case, the melody is the voice. Unless you want to add another melody in between the voice sounds, you're more than welcome to do this with more of your virtual choices: loops, samples, or virtual instruments. Next up, you're going to add some additional percussion sounds. These sounds can also be found in the loops, the samples, the virtual instruments, and you kind of want to add new fun rhythms to just add a little bit more flavor to your remix. Feel free to look at other loops and samples or anything else that you would like to import into your project. Now we're going to mix our tracks. We are going to want to take a look at our videos on the horizontal plane, the vertical plane, and the proximity plane to help us move the sounds around in our mix. But here are a few tips. The first thing you want to think about are your anchor points. What are we going to keep in the middle? We are going to keep our lead vocal, our snare, our bass, and our kick drum. And these are placed in order from top to bottom. This has to do with frequency, which could also be described as pitch. Now, to bring that kick drum out, a trick in EDM is to use sidechain, aka we're ducking all the sounds underneath the kick drum to really bring it out in our mix, right in our face. Thump, thump, thump. You could use this with an actual sidechain setting, which would put the sidechain on the chords to duck under the kick. If your DAW does not have sidechain, you can use automation and physically do it. All you need to do is put the automation on one bar and then copy and paste this bar throughout. The anchor points were placed in the middle of your mix, and we talked about frequency. That has to do with EQ. These are moving the sounds up and down. Take a look at EQ here, place it on one of your tracks, and try to put a high pass like this. Notice what it does to the sound. Now try to do a low pass like this. Notice what it does to the sound. Now think about your instruments. Which ones would you like to bring the higher frequencies out, and which one would you like to bring the lower frequencies out? And place them in your mix so they're not in the same frequency range, so they're not getting muddy. We want the sound to be clear. Imagine that you're one of the players and you have the trumpet up top as a high frequency and your friend is playing the tuba as a low frequency. We want your friend's horn to be coming straight through so we could hear it, and we want the trumpet's horn to be coming straight through so we could hear it. If we can't hear it properly, the next part is to do panning. So the anchor points, those that were in the middle of the picture, would be pan to the middle at this setting here. And if we want to move the tuba to the left side of the room or the left side of the speaker, we would move it like this. And then we could move the trumpet to the right like this. This is what panning and EQ does. Now, some sounds we want closer to us and some sounds we want further back. We call this the proximity plane. We will put our volume faders up one by one, like this. Try it on each track, just like this. Notice what it does to the sound. We could add reverb to one track, press the S to solo the track to hear just that track. And now what does the reverb do? Unmute all the other tracks and take the solo off. How does that sound blend and balance into your mix? I'd like you to try that on various tracks. Next, we're going to try doubling your tracks and see what happens. If I click on this track and double it, all of a sudden I have 2. Not much will happen unless I shift this one a little bit to the side. That could be known as the Haas effect, or it could also be delay. But there's also a delay effect, so notice what the difference is if you put a delay on one track like this. Notice the sound difference. With doubling, you could also make your sound wider by panning one track to the right and one track to the left. There are so many different options. What you need to do is focus on one at a time, one track at a time. Listen to it individually, but then listen to it in your full mix. This way you could get an idea of what the sound or what the effect does to the one sound on its own, and then how it affects the entire mix. Every time you change one sound, it could change your whole mix. Therefore, keep at it and have fun. So let's do a quick recap before we leave today. Part 1, you want to find the song you're interested in, get the a cappella stem, figure out the tempo you want, figure out the key you want, figure out the chord progression you want. Next part, when you're tracking, think about the form. Do you want verse, chorus, bridge? Are the chords different from verse to chorus, and so on? And then understand how to bring this into your DAW. And then add the electronic dance music fundamentals such as kick, clap, hi-hat, bass, melody, percussion, and other elements. Look at the loops, samples, drum machines, virtual instruments. And then when you're mixing, think about the horizontal plane, the vertical plane, and the proximity planes. So until next time, good luck, have fun. We shall see you again next time.